Welcome to Limitbreaker Jam Sessions. I'm your host, Andrew Bennett, and today we're sitting down with Nicholas Tessier to talk about his music career and how he connects with other indies like himself.
All right, well, good job on getting my name correctly twice in a row, because we had a little dry session before we did this, so I'm ready to roll.
Thank you. Alrighty. Now, I do want to note before this interview that I do not know Nick. Nick does not know me. We're complete and total strangers. We haven't known each other for 8 years.
Yeah, that sounds about
It
right.
hasn't been 8 years, has it?
It's been 0 years because we don't know each other, right?
Absolutely. We're total strangers. I just messaged Nick in the middle of the night, and he's like, it's 3 a.m. Who is this? This is a complete and total stranger who hasn't done any album art for me at all. Why is he messaging me?
Yeah, like I had a bunch of albums out that had no artwork, and they still have no artwork, and I'm not even doing an interview right now.
Right. This isn't an interview. This is the FBI. Open up.
Okay. Look, I can explain the stuff on my hard drive. It's for a friend.
That's what they all say. Oh boy. So I guess we might as well get to it, Nick. We've got this handy dandy list of questions to ask you, and your hard drive if need be. Just fresh out of the gate, this first question is kind of obligatory. All interviews of musicians start with this question. What made you want to start making music?
Yeah, that one's an interesting one, because what made me start kind of died off into why I continue to do it. So I'll start off with why I began. I was really just curious about loops. I just thought, okay, this is when I'm very young. I'm on GarageBand. I'm just like, okay, so you have like a little conga loop going, and then you have like these little keys going. And what does it sound like when you put one on top of the other? Right? That was the idea.
Yeah, that's a good question.
That was the idea. And I learned it instantly when I put the two loops on top of each other. And that is why I want to start making music. I want to see what would happen when I start putting things together. And of course, this is all looped. This is all pre-packaged in the software I was using. But then I got bored of loops. And I guess the second question would be something like, what made you continue? And
yeah,
for that, it would have to be, I wanted to create identities through music. So I already understood what things sound like together. Now I want to know what things say when they're put together.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. I like that a lot.
Thanks, man.
I mean, that's one of the things about creativity, though, that it's like, for some people, they already have a vision of what they want, and then you have others that have this take of, I don't know what this is. This is the unknown, so let's go find out what's there.
Yeah, I'm definitely more of that camp. I'll have moments where I just get random ideas, and I just know the general feeling. Let's say it like that, and I'll know some images, and we can talk about some of those images in a bit. But I don't know the exact process. The process is unknown to me, and I start building it as I go, and through that it generates itself. It's more like this, yes.
I get you. Yeah. So you started out using GarageBand when first putting loops together, but after you moved on from the loops and everything, where did you go after GarageBand?
Right. So there's a little break here. I used GarageBand when I was like really young. I was using like my sister's laptop that was from school or whatever, and then I stopped making music for quite a while because I just didn't have an Apple product. But then Mr. Luke, as I'm guessing this will be number 2. So in Limitbreaker Jam Sessions number 1, he turned me on to a little program called Mixcraft, and it's essentially GarageBand for Windows. So
wow.
Yeah, that is what I started out with. I started out with Mixcraft, and it was basically the same thing as GarageBand. It's just a bunch of loops. So that idea was there for quite a while, right? Like, what does it sound like when I put two things together? That idea stuck around for quite a while, because there's that interim where I wasn't making music. But after I got bored of loops, I went on to Fruity Loops. Well, it's not called that anymore. It's called FL Studio, right? So FL Studio is my DAW, digital audio workshop of choice. And it's really versatile because it allows the user to not necessarily have to work in the framework of loops, which you absolutely can. You can just have it as a singular pattern. So in a pattern, you can just, hit the recording button and you can play your MIDI keyboard. And I have 3. So I'll tell you a little bit about my equipment. I started out with an Alesis QX49 keyboard, and that was the first instance I had of a MIDI keyboard. And I'll tell you, it is not a very good one. It is unweighted, so the keys are very, feels like a toy.
Ooh, yikes.
Yeah, so I didn't know this at the time, but I learned it later in life. It's all about the touch. It's always about the touch. So that thing made me very unmotivated to learn piano because, first of all, it's 49 keys. A grand piano has 88 keys. So you're looking at, a little bit more than 50%, which is not that enticing.
Yes.
It's low on range, right? Nevertheless, I would play around with it, and it wouldn't be like a virtuoso, right? I was not a virtuoso on this thing. I was messing around with it. But then a friend of mine who I don't talk to anymore, they just kind of disappeared, vanished, gone.
Twilight Zone?
Yes. He was a boxer, and we would train together. And one night he said, "Nick, I have a piano. I know that you'll do better things with it than I could." And he just came over one day, and he brought to me a Yamaha P45, and that has 88 keys on it. It's a digital piano, they call it. So it only has 8 sounds on it, but they're high quality.
Yeah.
And that is when I took off immensely. This is graded hammer action keys. So on the left hand, the lower register, the low octaves, is very meaty, very weighty. When you press down, you can feel it. On the right hand side of the keyboard, at the top end, the high register, the high octaves, is very light. And it's a graded system. So each key to the left, starting from the right, gets heavier and heavier. That's
really interesting.
I know, right? Now you might ask, why is it like this? Because a real piano is exactly like that. It has strings attached to each key. And let me ask you, when the keys go to the left, it has a lower sound. What do you think happens to the thickness of the strings?
It would get lighter.
When it goes lower in pitch.
Yeah, when it goes lower in pitch. Well, when it goes lower in pitch, yeah, that would get heavier and heavier.
It'd get heavier. That's right. It'd get heavier. It'd get thicker. So you have these meaty strings at the left hand side, and you have thin strings at the right hand side. And that's why.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and that's why when you click it down, it'll give you that reaction.
I never really thought about how these keyboards are made or how they function on the inside, but I'd imagine that's very, 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 very important for each one of them. With the 2 you've just described here, especially that first one being completely weightless. I'm assuming that one wasn't particularly expensive?
No, definitely not. It was probably $200 or less. Absolutely, something in that range.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, my my Yamaha is given to me free, but I'd say it goes for about $650, something like that. And this is really key, Andy. The touch gave way to the music. All right.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept too. I mean, it's like, how do I put this? It's very difficult to build something when you're using poor tools.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sometimes all the difference, not just in terms of quality in the end, but also in motivation. I mean, like you said there. And so, was there a third keyboard that you mentioned there, or am I having a brain fart again?
No, you're completely on the dot here. I just recently bought an RD 2000. And this one is a full-on stage piano, so it has thousands of sounds on board, and the hammer action is phenomenal. It's Roland's patented Phantom. They have like a Phantom series, and it's essentially like what do they have? The Cherry for the mechanical keyboards. What are those called? It's called a Cherry something, right?
Yeah, that sounds about
Like
right.
a cherry switch or something.
Yeah, cherry switches. That's what they're called.
It's the equivalent for a piano, essentially. And
so nice and clicky.
yeah, it's not like audibly clicky in the same way, but it has like the tactile response that you would really want from a piano. It's as if it was real. It's made with wooden materials, ivory materials. And it is quite good.
That sounds nice, really.
It honestly is. And I want to backtrack for a second. You said something that was so like on the point. You said, in terms of motivation, the tools motivate. It does. Mm-hmm. It 100% does. And it does so in a way that's actually a little bit transcendental. So I'm going to break down what I mean by that.
Okay.
If I didn't have my Yamaha, the mid-tier keyboard, we could call it, if I didn't have this, I wouldn't have developed my piano skills because I wouldn't be playing it every day. But the touch made me play every day. It honestly did. And that motivation gave me skill. And that skill I can transfer to shitty keyboards. So,
hey, listen. You got to be prepared to go up the ladder and go down the ladder at any given moment's notice. You're going to go out on stage, you're going to be like, so guys, where's my keyboard? They come out with a nice little plastic Fisher-Price keyboard, and they're like, there you go, there's your live set. Have fun.
Beautiful. That is so beautiful. And it's...
Just go out on stage, play a song with that. You saw the Powerpuff Girls as a kid, right?
Absolutely.
You know that like little phone with the smiley face they'd use as a hotline?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you just got to go out on stage and play with a combination of Fisher-Price toys and that. just use the sounds, man. Use the sounds. The world is your oyster. Go make some music.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that sentiment. That's precisely it. I needed to have the correct setup to build myself up on. And this is very true of me as like a person. I'm very systematic in my thought and how I do things.
Mm-hmm.
I've let go of this. I've let go of this idea or this way of thinking to a certain degree because we need to grow as people and we need to break out of our comfort zone. But take like cooking, for example. Normally, when someone teaches you cooking, and I don't mean like a chef or anything. I mean like your mom or something like that. They're gonna say, okay, put the salt in the water. Let's salt the water. As a first time cook, you're gonna ask, what? How much salt do I put? Right?
Yeah.
Now, this is tricky. Because if you're not given an exact measurement, you're being put on the spot. You have to give an intuition, right? Now, does that mean, and that's a little bit scary, because if your intuition says like, okay, I'm gonna pour the whole goddamn box into this pot, you're gonna look stupid, yeah?
My intuition's telling me that I need to make this pasta just as salty as I am, and I just lost 12 rounds of Overwatch, so I'm about to get capital G gamer mad.
Right, right. If you do that, then your mom's gonna be disappointed in you.
I mean, she already is. Let's just go ahead and act.
Perfect. So yes, so that's the idea. We have to trust our intuition in the physical sense. Okay, so like putting a decent amount of salt into the pasta bowl or into the water that's gonna cook your pasta. That is something that you develop if you're not entirely told right away.
Yeah. It's a system of trial and error, really.
It is, and I'll be honest with you, I was never too much of a fan of that. I was always a fan of give me a particular number, give me a measuring cup, give me a particular amount, and I'll put in that amount because I know there's a system in place here, right? A ratio.
Right,
A ratio.
Now, does that change depending on the situation? Like, let's say, as I think over like my own creative process, if I have something that is, I can quickly fire and affect these changes. You know, I can just Control S, Alt Tab. I see the changes to my work. That's immediate.
Yes.
And quick trial and error prototyping. Are you okay with that, or is it's all to the system?
Right. Exactly what you were talking about. That is something I would do as well. Because over time I developed. Okay, let me backtrack then. In your particular instance, you're giving very quick and easy, immediate actions, right? And you can undo them.
Yes.
Yeah, you couldn't undo a performance, right?
Right.
That's the difference. When it comes to production, absolutely, I'm 100% with you. With the trial and error, absolutely. And I let my instincts guide me. I let my taste guide me. That's always the case. But differently, if you're cooking pasta, if you're like me, you would take the failure of pasta a lot more seriously than others. I don't know if that's cryptic or if you know what I mean by that.
I was trained in a temple at the top of the mountains by an ancient Buddhist monk. He told me the exact amount of pasta to put into the water because his grandmother was Italian. And so there I sat, looking upon my own failure, knowing that out there my master, seeing me through his mind's eye, was disappointed in me. I had failed him at this very day, and this pasta was going to go into the garbage disposal. I had to run to the store, buy more, and start again.
It was too salty. Exactly. That's me. so, that's me.
Nicholas Tessier, trained in the mountains.
Yes, trained in the mountains with a colander. Good.
You gotta balance that colander on your head for 3 days straight.
Yes.
Walking up and down the mountain.
Fun fact: I like my pasta nearly undercooked, like 5 minutes, and we're good. Less if I can get away with it.
Just have to have the right texture.
That's right. Not crunchy, but just after it was crunchy. That's when it's cooked. Okay.
This is the part where I have to step off of the script for a second and ask you, how do you like your steak?
Medium rare.
Perfect.
Okay.
Same answer I'd give. Okay, back on the script.
Okay. Back to spaghetti, because if you look at the script, like we have like 10 questions about spaghetti.
Absolutely. I can't believe it. You know, I was just kind of, when I was writing this, I just kind of closed my eyes and just started typing it. I look up, I open my eyes, and I'm like, wow, I mean, for a music interview, I'm asking a lot of spaghetti questions here. This is crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah, like on the topic of movies, spaghetti westerns.
Can't have those undercooked either.
No, you can't. Okay, let's get back a little bit on track. We'll go back to the spaghetti.
You're gonna get me with this, aren't you?
I am.
I'm not living this one down.
No, never.
I just fill the script with spaghetti questions one time, and suddenly I'm the spaghetti man.
Yeah, You're the spaghetti monster, the flying one. Okay.
But so I will say, on the topic of the actual script.
Yes.
So, you know, you're talking about systems, and I know you've put quite a bit of time into learning music theory.
Yes.
So, did you get started with mixing and mastering during the process of researching music theory, after that, or where did you start with that exactly?
Right. So actually, if we backtrack all the way to the beginning of this conversation, I was talking about them loops, right? Them loops.
Yeah.
And it becomes intrinsic to the process of taking loops and putting them together that you mix them. That is intrinsic because if that's your drum loop, you're gonna have to lower it down. So that's all right. Now we can have some keys in there, and that's really important. I learned that fairly quickly as in a very rudimentary way. I noticed if I had too many things on top of each other, it would get blown out. All right.
Yeah.
This is known as clipping. It simply means your decibel level has gone over 0. It's gone positive, and that's a negative thing. It's not always a negative thing, but it's usually a negative thing because you generally want to preserve the quality of.
If you're MC Ride, you can do whatever.
Yeah. You are the beast that you worship, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. So I would say it goes like this. I had a very rudimentary understanding of mixing first, and I mean extremely like caveman. I make lower so it lower, right? So that's the caveman thought process. Then I went on to FL Studio, and this is when I really started to learn about music theory. Because there's this concept called the piano roll, and that gives you all 12 chromatic keys in the Western system that we use. Why do they sometimes work and sometimes not work, right? What do I mean by work and not work? Why is it sometimes consonant and why is it dissonant in other times, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the idea. Because if you just play all the white keys together, and notice I'm not even using names yet. I'm not even using note names. You'll get a harmonious sound unless you play 2 adjacent white notes that don't have a black key in between them, or you play, okay, now I'm going to introduce the note names, the B and the F keys.
Okay.
So at the very end there, I had to introduce the names, but if you notice, beforehand I didn't. I was just using white and black. Now, the key idea here is we have a concept of the accidentals. And accidentals are when we make a note sharp or flat relative to its name. So we have 7 letters that we use, and we don't start at A, we start at C. When we get to G, we wrap around. So, if you'll do the exercise with me, we go C, and then the next one would be a... You just go in alphabetical order here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Oh, you're asking me to recite the alphabet.
Yes, starting on C, wrapping around on G to A.
Okay. C, D, E, F, G.
And then we wrap around, and then we continue.
A, B, C.
Yeah, exactly. You went from C to C. Perfect. So those are the fundamental building blocks that are for every single scale that has 7 notes in it. There are many scales that don't have 7 notes in it. There are scales that use 8. There are scales that use 5. There are scales that use 6, etc. But we established that there are 7 names, and they're the 7 letters of the alphabet from A to G, starting on C, so it wraps around. And I talked about this concept of accidentals. Now, what does this mean? It means sharp or flat. So what we get is a system where we use C, wrapping back to C, and we add sharps and flats towards particular notes in a particular pattern. And this gives us every single major scale. It gives us every single minor scale and all the modes. So the scale of G, major, would be all the letters starting on G. So we start with G. And it has 1 sharp. And I'll tell you, there's a pattern to the sharps. And I'll just let you know, anytime there's one sharp or more, the first sharp is always F. So we say G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, because I said the F is the sharp one, correct?
Correct.
So if there's no accidental, just the name, it's a white key.
Okay.
If there is a sharp or a flat, it's a black key. Okay?
Okay.
Now, there's exceptions to this for C flat, B sharp, E sharp, and F flat. Those are the only exceptions. All those actually constitute white notes. But everything else, it's going to be black notes. All right? This idea was really, really important to me to actually pick up on music theory, because I did not know where to put my fingers on the keyboard. Right?
Right.
You say, I want to make music. I want to express myself. I'll be flattering. I want to express something beautiful. But if I'm playing something and all that comes out is atonal, it's dissonant, it has no structure, then I'm not expressing myself. Right?
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to know which keys are sharp, which keys are flat, and to know what the key is. So if you play in C, it's all the white notes. If you play in G, it's all the white notes except for the F. That one becomes black, and it works like that.
This is really interesting. I'd heard a little bit about chord progression before, because of a video going around talking about I believe it's called Royal Road chord progression.
Okay.
Which in the 70s and 80s was popular here in the West, and then eventually transferred over to being popular only in Eastern countries like Japan, where it's still used to this day and has kind of fallen out of popularity here. And I kid you not, it is used in a song you might have heard of called Never Gonna Give You Up. And so that was, reading up on that a little was more or less my only knowledge of chord progression beforehand, and it's an interesting subject.
Right. So chord progression, it's interesting. We might say it's a derivative of scales. That's one way to talk about it. Or we can full-heartedly try to accept it as its own element, its own field of study. Because with scales, you can generate chords. So let's take that G scale that we talked about, right? What was the only one that was sharp, if you remember?
Was it the F?
Yeah, it was the F. We can do this neat activity, and this actually is not immediately easy. Maybe it is immediately easy. Your mileage may vary based upon your particular skill set or how you think, but let's do a little activity. So if I say G, what would the next one be? Wrapping around. It would just simply be...
and G wraps around to D, or does it wrap around to A?
Wraps around to A.
Wraps around to A, okay.
And then A goes to what afterwards? Just the next one.
B?
Right. So we just said G, A, B. Now, what we can do is we can say, okay, goodbye, A. We're just going to skip every other one. So we're going to have G,
okay.
Skip A. We have B, skip C, include D, skip E, include F sharp. So we just made G, B, D, F sharp. Okay?
Okay.
That is a chord. And it is the fundamental chord. It is the tonic chord of G major. Because it's a G major 7 chord. Okay?
I feel like I should be taking notes here.
I know, right? You see, when we skipped every other one, we took a marble. We took like a block of marble and we chiseled it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Because we skipped every other one. We gave it space, and that created its chord. So I'm going to take a wild guess. I don't know the exact chord progression you're talking about because it has its own flavor. It might go out of the key signature even, but that's a totally different topic. But I'm going to guess it ends or starts on the 1 chord because that is the fundamental chord of that scale.
Yeah, let me take a quick look around here. Actually, let's see.
And the beautiful
man.
thing is, any scale will have that fundamental chord in its name. If you're in G major, you would have your G major 7. If you're in A major, you would have your A major 7. If you're in C major, you'd have your C major 7. Right?
I feel my brain hurting right now, Nick.
Okay, that's enough of that.
This is the point where I realize that no, I really was not cut out for music class, and that I'm perfectly fine with staying in graphic design.
You know what? I can't tell like what I'm looking at if I look at it like a picture of Minecraft, so I don't have a good depth perception. So you can stick with the graphic design.
Yeah, especially when I never contribute any album art for you whatsoever.
Oh yeah, there was never this guy whose name is not Andy who didn't make a whole bunch of album artwork for me. That never happened.
Yeah, that never happened. I think that was done by that Arthur guy.
Oh right. Yeah, the Arthur, the King Arthur actually. He was literally the king.
This is a really meta joke for anyone who wasn't on the McLeod Gaming Forum, so congratulations to the 3 of you who are still alive out there.
2 of those people are me and Arthur, so.
Yeah.
Arthur's Andy.
You don't have to spoil it for him. You could have let it stay a mystery.
I'm not one for mystery.
Oh, man.
I lay it all out.
Well,
I have gotten trouble for it.
I can't think of a good way to segue this conversation, because I can't just say, so on this topic of laying it all out, and it's like, no, that doesn't work. But moving on to the more social aspect of music making, you talked with me before about your endeavors with other independent musicians in the Toronto area. How exactly did that get started? How did you get out there, introduce yourself, and meet these people?
Right, that's a good one. So, I'm a bit of an interesting case, as if you want to look at my social tendencies, let's call it. If you do the Myers-Briggs thing, you'll find out that I'm dominantly an introvert. But there's definitely a part of me and a part of everyone that's extroverted, and the same goes vice versa. So you just have to have the right materials to bring out that secondary element. If you're a social person, you're going to have some sort of downtime element to you, guaranteed. If you're a more of an introverted person, you are definitely going to have a way to express yourself outwardly. And I'll tell you what some of the things that get me outwardly. Going to concerts. When I go to concerts, I actually don't usually bring people with me. It's not because I'm friendless. That would suck. It's because most of my friends don't really enjoy the same type of music I enjoy, and that's not really a big issue for me. So I just go by myself, and I'll usually show up early, and every single time, I'll see other people in the line, early, and I'll just start talking to them, because there's obviously something that drawn this person to this show. And every time I do that, I learn a little bit about who I'm talking to, see if they're a good person to talk to. It's not always a good person to talk to, I'll tell you that much.
This sounds like this is something that you might have a couple stories to tell me after we're done recording.
Absolutely. But during the recording, yeah, I could tell you. There are many people that are musicians that go to music shows early. It's very common. I'll tell you, it's very common. So I've done this a few times, and I'll meet a drummer here, I'll meet a guitarist there, and we keep in touch because it's nice to do that. We decide, hey, I'm this type of person. I make this kind of music. Let's see what happens, right? That's the key. You just have to be willing to talk to a stranger who you just have to have some faith that it'll be worth it. And it always is worth it, even if it doesn't. Even if it turns out that the person's an asshole, you get
at
to
the very
walk
least you get
thinking,
a story.
hey, at least I'm not an asshole.
That's another good point. Yeah.
right?
So long as I'm not this person, my day will be good.
Right. Or if you find someone and, you find yourself talking after the show and you're walking in the middle of the night at 12 at night and you're stumbling to the subway because you're just like jumping around and, having a good time. That's cool. It's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I basically did that first, and I got into contact with this guy who had like connections to various parties and stuff like that, and I'd go to them, and I'd meet people there. That kickstarted a separate element of my life related to music, but we're not going to talk on that aspect today. Maybe we talk about it in a future episode. That could be possible.
Absolutely.
But we're not going to talk about it tonight. But yeah, that is what happened. You go out, you meet people know people, and you meet more people. That's how that works.
It's just an unending spider web, really.
It is. Brief side note, because we've been totally on track and there's no side notes.
Absolutely.
It is a mathematical fact that your friends, on average, are more popular than you are. It is a mathematical fact.
See, first you make me feel dumb, and then you're like, well, here's some math facts to make you feel even dumber, Andy. And it's like, oh,
and
man,
also feel unpopular.
Yeah. I'm so glad that I haven't known this Nick guy before today.
I know,
I'm so
right?
absolutely glad that I didn't know this jerk. Oh.
Oh wait, I was the asshole at the concert. Damn it.
You're the guy with the guitar in the corner playing Wonderwall right now, Nick.
To my credit, I don't know how to play that song. So. Alrighty, yeah. So that'd be my answer to that portion.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Because this is something that the episode's not done editing yet, so obviously you wouldn't have heard it or known about it. But Luke and I kind of talked about this from an all-digital standpoint on the previous episode. And our conclusion was your life lies in the hands of the algorithm, or if you know somebody that's really, really, like, absurdly popular. And even then, that's not a guarantee. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of our conclusion from talking about that end of the music industry, which was, again, that was an all-digital perspective.
Right.
And it seems it's a bit of a different world out there if you manage to talk to the right guy in person.
Absolutely. It depends where you live, too.
Oh, of course.
So, I live near Toronto. I can't say that I live in Toronto. I live in Mississauga, which is the, how do I put this? Toronto is like the really popular social butterfly, and then Mississauga is like the chubby kid that doesn't do much. It's quite a boring place here. So I travel to Toronto. That's funny. I said Toronto. If you're in Toronto, you say Toronto. You don't pronounce the T. If you're in Toronto, then you don't pronounce the T, right? Okay. So yeah, that's where most of the action happens. But there's also places down south, Waterloo, Brantford. These places have their own scenes as well, and I engage there too. And you know what? You'll find yourself, like I was, playing with two other bands on top of a tower for a skate park.
How did that go?
Terrifying. I'm afraid of heights. I had a set list of songs that I was going to play with my drummer, who I met at a concert in Toronto. Right, so perfect connection. And he lives in Brantford, so he said, "Dude, we're gonna play at a skate park. Let's do this." Then the band Noisebleed, who are a punk band, and the singer plays a tambourine and the theremin.
The theremin?
The theremin, you know?
What exactly is a theremin?
You know what the theremin is, or you need some elaboration?
Let's get a little elaboration on this.
Okay, so A theremin is an instrument that you play by not touching it.
Oh.
It uses your magnetic field. So
What?
you, Andy, have a particular magnetic field about you, particular to your body, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And if you went up to this, it's a box. It's basically a radio,
Okay.
and it has like the antenna, which is I'm not sure what it looks like. It looks like a car antenna, okay?
Okay.
And then it has like this box, which looks like an old radio, and on the usually the right hand side, I suppose, has a loop that's made of the same material as the antenna, and it's like chrome on the antennas and the loop. And you play it by you make the Italian symbol or the OK symbol. I guess it depends on your school of thought for how you want to play the instrument.
How much salt is in your hand? That's the difference.
Enough for spaghetti. So, you basically move your hand in such a way that it takes a different distance from the antenna, and that determines the pitch. The further away it is, the lower the pitch. The closer it is, the higher the pitch. And the loop determines volume. The further away, the louder it is. The closer your hand is to the loop, the quieter it is. It's basically like an alien playing the violin. If you want to...
That sounds fascinating.
It is. I recommend everyone search up theremin after this podcast, and they get to hear what the theremin sounds like. And you wouldn't think that this would be in a punk band. Okay.
From your description alone, this does not sound like punk band instrumental. I mean, I'm used to, you got your usual, okay, you got the 20-year-old on a drum kit, you got the 18-year-old out there up front playing his guitar, and you've got his potentially underage girlfriend sitting back in the stands, tearfully watching.
That'd be the vocalist's underage girlfriend.
Yeah, to clarify. Drummers,
with the
from my personal experience and knowledge, drummers in punk bands tend to not be the ones with underage girlfriends.
Nah, they just smoke weed.
They usually just chain smoke.
Yeah.
I do want to note that to any drummers out there listening to this, I'm sorry. I open my mouth, I start speaking. This just kind of happens. So yeah.
Yeah, like the Blink-182 drummer. He works with a lot of rap artists, and he's really immersed in that game. And that might be really interesting for fans of hip-hop and fans of pop-punk alike.
Wow.
You get like this bridging of the two, you know?
I mean, I guess I guess actually, you mentioned it. It's like, I guess, with beats and everything, I guess there is a certain need for drummers across genres there.
Yeah, and I've always been a huge advocate of people collaborating cross-culturally, cross-stylistically.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really beautiful thing when you can take like like rag, which is like a Indian style of music. It's literally like a form of music theory for them, and you can combine that with like jazz, and then you get jazz rag or jazz raga. And there are artists who are long dead who I cherish very much. Herbie Mann is a great example of this. He would play bossa nova music with jazz musicians, and he's a flute player. So it's really interesting to hear these kinds of activities being done.
Absolutely. So, on the topic of different styles and just different types of music in general, you've got a couple of projects and side projects. You've got the main, I believe it would be pronounced. Thinking it over, I don't think I've ever said it in a call with you aloud. Nixter, that's your main project. Yeah, Nixter. Okay,
Nixter.
That's another word I've pronounced correctly tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got that as your main project, and then you have a couple of side things. You've got Embellish. You've got, let's see if I can get three in a row here. A Nacht.
Yes, yes.
Three in a row. And then you have DNA.
That's Dina. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, man.
It's DNA.
Nearly
It's
had me.
DNA.
Nearly had me. So you've got 4 projects there.
Yes.
What was the point where you were like, this is a Nixter track, this is a Noct track, this is an embellished track, this is DNA? What separates these things?
Good. So, it all started when I was working on this project called The Fire Down, which you totally didn't have a hand in editing the artwork, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
That was 5 years ago, wasn't it?
That was quite a long time ago. Let me see if I have the exact date of its release. That one was released July 12th, 2015.
I am always correct. I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket after this, for the record.
All right, awesome. If you win, I expect nothing. I expect nothing.
I'll smuggle scratch-offs off the border. They'll be kind of worthless once they get to you, but, it's the thought that counts.
Yeah. I just knew that if I said, I want you to wire me $100,000, then, there might be, when it inevitably does happen, the FBI might use this as evidence to, oh shit, I just gave away my master plan. Okay, anyway.
Note to all federal agents within Nick's area. I don't know what they call them up in Canada. Your CIA
Mounties.
Mounties. You got to have a couple of Mounties. Just by all means, Mounties. Don't go looking under his floorboards. You won't find anything there. It's just dust.
Yes. So back to your question. I realized when I was creating different kinds of music, I noticed the different kinds of identities have their own categorical place. So embellish is very much attuned to stylistically jazz music. Not exclusively jazz music, but including its off streams. So there is in the first project of Embellish Moral Story, there are elements of orchestral motifs and so on. So you might consider that third stream, which is just the marriage of jazz and orchestral music. Embellish really has this raw understanding of itself. It's very much attuned to existence, the process of life. So that's why Mortal Story, you might figure out what could be themes in there. Obviously mortality, its inverse immortality, and the going through of one's life. These are very raw, you might even call them existentialist ideas. It's always backed by a kind of artistic need to be close to the jazz tradition, ultimately. So embellished music is usually jazz. It's usually romantic as well, which is, a form of classical music. There's a very direct connection between these schools of music. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, has its own place apart from Nixter, because Nixter is always a removal of existentialist themes, and it just kind of accepts itself as concepts, as a pure project, as you might have encountered with other artists. One that comes to mind perfectly is the Magnetic Fields, who has records like, have you ever heard of them?
I want to say that you've told me about them before, because that name is very familiar.
Right, I probably sent over a track or two. They have an album called 69 Love Songs.
Okay.
And what do you think constitute this album? How many tracks do you think there are?
I mean, the obvious answer is to say that there are, in fact, 69 love songs on there.
Yes, there are 69 songs about love. Songs. Yes.
Wow, that's certainly a group that you cannot sue for false advertising. Exactly what it says on the tin.
It is precisely that. That is absolutely on the money right there. Their latest record, or actually not their latest anymore. I guess they're at this point they created another album, but before their latest, 50. I think it's called 50 Song Memoir, something along those lines.
I'm looking at a list of their albums right now, and you are correct.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Guess how many songs are on that?
I don't think I have to guess anymore.
You just know. 50 songs. They have an album called I, and every single one of those songs start with the letter I.
Man.
Yeah. Now, what's the idea there?
Exactly what it says on the tin, I guess?
It's exactly what it says on the tin, and it is an artistic... its artistic genesis is not like, hey, man, I've gone through some stuff in life. Let me write an album. It's more like, hey, I have some idea. This can translate into music. Do you see how that's different from embellish?
Absolutely.
All right. Perfect example. Colors Trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to break the joke here. I'm going to do it. I'm going to break the joke. I loved the album artwork that you did for these 4 pieces right here. And before anyone says, wait, trilogy means 3. It does. But it comprises itself of 3 parts and then the whole. The whole trilogy itself is a 4th component. So,
He's got him there. I guess this is kind of a part where I can speak a little if we are completely breaking the joke that, in fact, yes, Nick, you know me. I do album art for you. And you've done copious amounts of music that's been used on this channel back when it was called the Gamer Zone, and for the bumps and everything. But when you first got to me about the Colors trilogy, and you started telling me, this was like the earliest days of planning, I think. This was so long ago that I want to say Chris was involved. It was that far back.
He was, yes.
And you told me that you wanted to base these around emotion. And my first response was, we're going to kind of take this the reverse direction of the Colors EPs from the Deer Hunter. Because the Deer Hunter, they have that color that they pick the emotion from. Yellow is happy, kind of whimsical. Orange is this slower, heavier thing, kind of like a summer evening. And green is very earthy. And of course, red's angry. And so we were kind of going in reverse direction there, where it's like, okay, you have emotions. What kind of colors can I associate with these? And so it was really fun. I've done nothing else like it in my entire life when I was working with you on that, when you were telling me that for the energy one, that was more than just emotion to be found in a color. That was only one half of the equation, because obviously when you have energy, you think to yourself kind of electricity. You've got your kind of yellowy orange, maybe light colors, something fast. But then my mind went back to a previous project that you had me do album art for. That was called You Are My City, I think it is.
Yeah. That's correct.
And during that project, as you're writing out these songs, you said you wanted to capture the energy of a city. And my mind goes back to that, and I'm like, that's what we're going to base this on. And so the album art for Energy from the trilogy is more or less, I would say, a sequel to You Are My City. And that's how I planned that out. And it just carries on with that same core idea, done with different software at the time, much better production quality. That core idea, though, that it's this bustling energy of a city. You know, it's this lifeblood of ideas and culture. And wow, look at me sounding all artsy. For a second, I sound like I actually know something about this topic. But it was just extremely fun. And Energy is still my absolute favorite out of all of those that I've done. Then I look back at some of the others, there was Fury, which creating Fury was really fun because I was like, I want something that looks harsh. Sharp edges. It was very clear cut when I first did it. And you were like, no, this isn't messed up enough.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm like, okay, fine. What do you want, Nick? What do you want? What do you want me to do? I'm just going to save this as a poorly compressed JPEG. And you're like, this is the right direction. And I'm like, you're kidding me. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just compressing this again. And then it got to the actual text to get put on it, and any font I sent over you didn't like. And you were like, I want it to look like this. And you just scribbled in MS Paint. And I was like, yeah, you know what? You want messed up chicken scratching? I'll give you messed up chicken scratching. And it worked out perfectly. I copied over your MS Paint scribbles and distorted them. That was fun. That was really fun.
Yeah. I love that because in a way it's kind of symbolic of like, hey, this is my particular way that I push out disgust into the world.
Through MS Paint.
Through it. And that is a fact. I make a lot of MS Paint stuff that lowers and simultaneously raises the standard of living for multiple people. So you have to go down to
Absolutely.
go up.
And then for Serenity, that was another fun one to make. They were all fun, really, but Serenity,
yes,
I was like, okay, I can't remember what order I made these in. I want to say that I finished Serenity after I finished Fury, or at least when I was initially planning these out. In my basic concepts, Fury was sharp edges, and Serenity was going to be the opposite of that. Those are opposite emotions. We're going to go with opposite shapes. So if you look at the art for Serenity, it's very circular. It's got this bubbly kind of look to it. The colors in there are actually taken from an image of waves.
Yep.
And so it's just this. It's the exact opposite of something sharp, you know. It's all rounded. You do what you can in there to just. I don't know. It's bubbly.
Absolutely.
And then for Trilogy, I was like, okay, this is everything at once. You said you're combining everything, so I'm just going to do the exact same thing with the art for this. So if you look at the art for Colors Trilogy, you'll see that in the very background, those triangles were the original shapes for Fury. Did I not actually tell you that?
I have a feeling you did mention that, or maybe you didn't, and I forgot. Obviously, if you didn't, then I didn't forget because there would be nothing to forget. But yes.
Yeah, and so that was the original shape for Fury. Then you've got the bubbles from Serenity around, which I feel like I could have positioned a little bit differently, but whatever. If you know, coulda, shoulda, woulda. But then that shape in the center, that kind of arrow up and down arrows with the colors involved, those are actually just the two building blocks I took from the DNA strands on the Energy cover.
Oh, that you didn't tell me for sure.
Yeah. So there was not a single thing on there aside from the text that was original for that piece.
That makes me like it even more.
So it was a really fun project. I mean, and obviously that's not the musical side of things, but
right. It's important to talk about that though, because I get like a lot of understanding through visuals. I'm not a visual person though. I don't. You could just check out Fury to understand the quality of my writing. My writing genuinely looks like that too. A little bit less hyperbolically than that, but my writing is abysmal and
I'm
so on.
left-handed, so I can't comment.
I'm left-handed too.
High five through the screen with your left hand only.
with our left hand only. Bop. All right. On that note, music always manages to give to me connections to different things, be it color or be it objects or concepts. So I'm gonna lay it out. I don't have like synesthesia or anything like that. I'm not gifted in that way. You can't play an A note and I'm like, oh, it's a blue one, and then if you play the D, it's like, oh, it's a green one, and then if you play the A and the D together, oh, it's turquoise or what have you. I don't have that concept. It's not a micro thing for me as it is for these people with synesthesia. For me, it is a macro concept. I'm interpreting the identity of this. And to me, this is blue. Yeah. To me, this is icy. To me, it signifies wind and cleanliness and storms, right? Yeah. That is how music works for me. That is what I get out of music. And it's not an immediate process in the way that it is for someone whose perception is literally twisted. Like literally the perception of sound twisted itself somehow with perception of color for certain individuals, and they get this gift. It's not like that. For me, it is a deliberate cognizing of what's around me. And I do this quite a bit in life. That's like a main feature of myself. I'll cognize what I'm given. So like the music I listen to, I have 259 genres in my iTunes library because I go through every single song and I cognize it and I understand what genre it should be called, right? That's how that works. And it's very particular to each individual song, right down to the song. Yeah, and that's how there's 259 of them instead of, maybe 8, 10 that, regular genre.
Yeah, your standards. You've got, well, I listen to everything but rap and hip hop.
Yeah, rock, country, jazz, dance, electronic. You might consider metal if sometimes they just group it with rock, which is funny.
I absolutely say those are separate genres. I don't get too heavy with genre sorting, but though I will admit, I think I would personally sort a lot of rock by subgenre myself. It's like, am I in the mood for some prog? Am I in the mood for something, a little classic? Let's go for a little 80s throwback. Let's throw Panama on in honor of Van Halen, who, as of recording, just passed away the day before. Absolutely.
Rest in peace.
But I don't get too specific aside from that.
Fair enough. I'm obsessive in that sense, and I do. Yeah, pretty much every genre I'm inclined to give it offshoots. I actually created an entire ontological map, and it doesn't look good because it's impossible to comprehend visually. If you have it like organized in a list, it makes a lot more sense. But visually, I installed a program called Gephi to look at the genre list, and I was like, oh my god, this literally cannot work. You cannot organize this data to make it sufficient for a human to understand what's going on.
I go to look at your genre charts, and I just see the Pepe Sylvia charts from Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
It's literally that. So I decided, what, screw it. I'm gonna make artwork with it, and I created genre as a ball, and it's literally just all the genre nodes in a ball. And tells you nothing, except for the colors. But I'll just mention one quick little thing about this project. Each genre has a particular parent genre. And if the parent genre is the genre itself, that would be a base genre. Each base genre can therefore have a subgenre. Subgenres can have subgenres as well. If a subgenre is a subgenre of a one, then the parent genre of the first subgenre would be the parent of the entire lineage.
Yeah.
You see this? And we have this concept of being a subgenre of. We also have a influence towards. So a good example of this would be electronic rock. So electronic rock is a subgenre of rock, but it is influenced by electronic music.
Huh. Yeah.
Right? So that's how that works. And this is incomprehensible once you get all, like, and of course I'm not God. I don't have all the genres. I have 259 of them. There's probably thousands of genres.
Where's the salsa music,
right?
Nick? Where's the salsa music at?
Right. Salsa would be, there's like the concept of bossa nova music. So I believe I put salsa as a subgenre of bossa nova, I believe. I think that's where that came from. And obviously as, a white person, the bossa nova is under world music as its parent genre. But in my defense, because I wanted to be like, okay, what if I didn't take the standpoint of a white person solely, and I kind of like contextualize what world music means. You find that folk music is a derivative of world music in a very particular way. And this is how I redeem myself in this sense, where I say like, okay, I'm not going to have like this racist view, because you know about this, right? People can have a implicitly racist view and they don't even mean to be racist. That occurs. So I was like, okay, how about I be aware of what I'm trying to portray here? And world music really just is a very one-to-one relation of music towards a culture. So particularly a culture that is to a geographical location. So like that is why I can say folk music as a representation of, say like Eastern. There's Eastern folk music that exists. It's from the culture itself of Eastern European, countries and so on. You can have the same thing for Americana. Mm-hmm. Americana is world music, right? Something like dance music, sure, there's a culture out there of dancers, of ravers. Sure, that's a culture. But it does not constitute world music because it is not particular to the geographical location in the same sense that you would say, I am a Slavic person, I am an African person, I am a German person, et cetera, et cetera.
That's
right?
really interesting. It sounds
so
as
that
if
is...
you're taking the same thought of, just consciously think to yourself, I have an accent. And you don't think of it as an accent because that's what you were raised with. That's what everybody around you speaks with. But that's an accent. You go to Germany, suddenly you're the man with an accent. You've got an American accent. You've got a Western English accent.
Precisely.
And it's an interesting thing to just kind of try and remove, I guess almost say remove your sense of self. And just view it not from your own eyes, but from the eyes of a complete outsider. It sounds like the same concept there.
Yes. That is the same concept. Absolutely. I am 100% in agreement with
Nick,
you on that.
We're getting a little late here, but I want to ask you, do you have any new music in the works? Anything for any specific project just yet, or are you just throwing ideas around and at the wall?
I do have some album ideas, or not even ideas. They're in the works, so they're more than ideas. I'll talk about the first one, and then I'll talk about the second one. the first one that I'm currently working on
Oh.
is an album of covers. I do not have a very strong relation to doing covers up until this point when I'm starting to do covers. When I started music, it was all purely myself, and I didn't want to be not that I didn't want to be influenced. It's I didn't want to take on other people's work and perform it. I wasn't interested in this in the slightest, to be very clear here. But as I grew older and I realized, hey, there's quite a bit of music that I love, and there's quite a bit of music that I can do that I already love. So the most interesting aspect is there are a lot of classical pieces that I want to perform on this. It's just me and my piano playing repertoire. Bach, Chopin, Satie, figures who have written in Baroque, in Romantic, and Impressionistic eras. That coupled with some modern music, artists that I really love. Chelsea Wolfe is one of them that I'd like to perform a song on. Deftones is another one that I'd like to perform on, give a performance of. That is the first project, and that is what I'm doing. I'm working on a Chopin piece, his Nocturne in E-flat major. It's the second of his nocturnes. I'm working on that one currently. I'm playing that.
That's really
I'm learning
interesting.
that, yeah.
And it's certainly a much easier sell for me than the Weezer cover album, which I think about on a daily basis. If I'm to be honest with you, it lives in my head rent free. It's haunting me like a specter. I just hear their cover of Africa every single time I go outside, and it hurts.
I don't know what to say to that. I'm sorry. On behalf of musicians, I'm sorry. The second project is actually kind of more like a singer-songwriter one. And I'm not much of a singer. I'm more of a screamer. But I'm trying to become a singer. So we'll see how that works. There we go. That's going to encapsulate it all.
Yeah, so that was really fun. And Nick, just thanks for being on the show.
Woo-hoo.
So for anybody out there who's interested in checking out Nick's music, you can take a look at his Bandcamp in the description of the video. And you can also follow him on Instagram, which is nixter.music. And you can follow Limitbreaker around the web by checking out our social links in the description below. So have a good one.